Reclaimed timbers often have a story to tell, from where the wood came from to all the de-stressed marks on each piece. This is my entry for the Rubbish Wood Challenge, hosted by Mark from Daner Made. So grab your coffee, sit back, and let's get to it. So I had a few barnboard pieces laying in my shop that's been sitting there for years. So I decided that this is a perfect opportunity to try something different. I wanted to go with a modern rustic look. There are definitely different design styles, and I kind of wanted to see if it would work out. So I wanted to skip plain these and flatten it out just a little bit while keeping its rustic patina on the face. And with the pieces planed down, I ended up using my table saw jointer jig to joint the edges. This gave me a nice clean cut, and then I was able to take it to the fence and do the other side. And with all the pieces ready to go, I started gluing up. I didn't use any fancy dominoes or anything like that for this project, but I'm sure this will hold up just fine. And judging from these pieces of lumber, I think I'm dealing with pine or fir on this project. I'm not 100% sure what type of material it is, but if you think you have a different idea, leave a comment below and let me know. And while the coffee table top is gluing up, I ended up starting with the legs. I wanted to go with a 20-degree modern style leg, and also have a taper from the bottom to the top of the leg. I think they add a nice touch to each project, and just makes things more different. I went with a 2" to 1.25" taper on the leg. Not too extreme, but just a little subtle. I'm also using the extra part for that leg so that I'll be able to secure the legs onto the coffee table top. I'm not sure if there's a proper name for this, but let's say it is a hockey stick. Or maybe a gooseneck leg. I don't know. To cut these pieces down, I used my miter saw and then took it to my bandsaw, and then ultimately ended up at the sander. Once I have all the pieces cut up, I ended up cutting a clamping block that matched the angle of my table legs. I used double-sided stick tape, and this just helps me get good clamping pressure on these legs. There's many different leg styles out there, but I decided to go with this minimal modern style. I wanted to see if modern and rustic would work well together. Time to sand down these pieces. I wanted to sand these down so that they're smooth enough but still had a little bit of patina left. Give it that little bit of rustic charm, but still looks fairly clean. And when I was happy with these legs, I took it to the router and softened up those edges. This gave it that nice curvature that I like, and also keeps the legs look more on a modern side. And when I was happy with the coffee table, I cut it down to the size that I wanted it. I'm sanding down the top more to give it the last little bit of smoothness. Again, rustic isn't necessarily my jam, but I wanted to test it out and try something new. I also routered the edges of the coffee table just to match the legs. And when I was all happy with it, I marked out and set out where I wanted to put my legs, starting with the hole placements on the legs. I pre-drilled some holes through the legs and used 2 different sizes so that my bolts will catch into the holes where you can't see it, but still go through and hold tight. With my 1/4" Forstner bit, I often have to pull it out to get those saw chunks off so I can get the bit down to where I need to. With the hole marked out, it's time to pre-drill the holes for the threaded inserts. I use a classic green tape trick to make sure I get to the depth that I want, and it's a fantastic one that works super well. Typically with threaded inserts, you usually use epoxy or some type of CA glue to lock it in place, but I decided against it since I may or may not one day want to remove it. I did forget to account for the taper in the legs, so I ended up grinding the screws down for the front of the legs. This gave me the right depth and it worked perfectly. And who doesn't want to throw down some sparks once in a while? My last little bit of sanding before I finish this coffee table, and I ended up using Varathane water-based poly. I thought it would give great protection but also show the natural deviations in the rustic wood. And water-based poly usually dries pretty fast and I'm always happy about that. Working with reclaimed lumber is a whole different ballgame, but it's cool to know that each piece has some history. Where it came from, what type of material, or even what it was in its past time. Those are the questions that often run through my head with old timbers, but for now, let's sip some coffee.